If you blink, you miss it. I mean, that really feels like the defining characteristic of modern medical science right now.
Oh, absolutely. But specifically, it's the story of metabolic medicine.
Yeah.
It really is a gold rush. But, for biology, we are seeing decades of stagnation suddenly give way to just, well, weekly breakthroughs.
And that is exactly what we are digging into today, because while the rest of the world is still debating the cultural impact of Ozempic and
Just two
Wegovy,
household names, right?
right, the ones that show up in literally every monologue on late-night TV, the actual science has already sprinted past them.
It really has.
We aren't just looking at the drugs, anymore. For everyone listening, we are looking at second and third generation therapies that make the current stuff look, well, I don't want to say obsolete.
No, not obsolete, but definitely like the Model T version of the technology.
The Model T, that is a perfectly fair comparison.
Yeah, because we're moving from single receptor therapies to dual therapies, and now we are staring down the barrel of triple receptor therapies.
So here is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to unpack the big three molecules that are just completely reshaping obesity medicine.
The big ones.
Exactly. We have the incumbent, semaglutide. We have the challenger, tirzepatide. And then we have the newcomer.
The one that sounds like it's from the future.
Right, retatrutide.
And to guide us through all this, we've got an incredibly detailed comparative analysis from Blue Pine Health.
Plus some really crucial new data on body composition.
Yes, which is so important.
Mm.
Because as we'll discuss, melting the pounds away is great, but...
Only if you aren't melting your muscles away in the process.
Exactly.
That is the part that genuinely scares me, so I definitely want to make sure we really drill down on that later. But I think the fundamental shift we need to make for you, the listener, right at the top is this.
That these aren't just diet drugs.
Right. It's not just an appetite suppressant.
No, and that is easily the biggest misconception out there. When you take a traditional diet pill, think back to the Fen days, or even those sketchy supplements you see at gas stations.
Oh, yeah, the ones with the neon labels?
Right, those are usually just stimulating the central nervous system. You're basically just speeding the body up to kill hunger.
Usually with some really jittery, unpleasant side effects.
Completely. But these new drugs are completely different. They are metabolic interventions.
They're hacking the biology.
Yes, hacking the body's fundamental signaling system, specifically the gut hormones, to fundamentally change how humans process energy.
Okay, so let's get into the machinery of it all. Let's start with the Model T we mentioned, the incumbent, semaglutide.
One everyone knows.
Right. This is the active ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy, and the Blue Pine Health Report categorizes this as a single agonist.
Semaglutide is really the drug that broke the dam. I mean, it proved that you could treat obesity pharmacologically with actual safety and efficacy.
But to understand why the new stuff is potentially better, we have to establish what semaglutide is actually doing.
Right. It is a GLP-1 receptor agonist.
Okay, stop right there. We see GLP-1 everywhere. It's on billboards now. But let's strip away the jargon for a second. What is it actually doing in the body?
Sure. So GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide 1.
Okay.
It's a hormone your gut naturally produces when you eat. Think of it as a signal flare that tells your brain,
Like, okay, we've had food, we're good.
exactly, we're full.
So the drug is essentially just a synthetic copy of that flare.
Yes, but it's a copy that lasts much, much longer. Your natural GLP-1 breaks down in literally minutes.
Wow, just minutes.
Yeah, it's very fast. But semaglutide hangs around for a week.
Ah.
So when it hits those receptors in the brain, it suppresses appetite constantly. But it also does something mechanical.
Which is?
It delays gastric emptying.
Meaning the food physically sits in your stomach longer.
It does. And that physical sensation of fullness is a huge part of why people just stop eating.
It makes sense.
But there is a third pillar here that is often overlooked. It also improves insulin secretion and reduces glucagon release.
So wait, it's hitting hunger in the brain, fullness in the stomach.
And sugar control in the blood.
Wow. It's a triple effect from just one receptor.
And the results really change the world. If you look at the major trials, specifically the SUSTAIN and STEP studies, which Blue Pine references, semaglutide delivered an average weight loss of about 15%.
Over what time frame?
Over roughly a year and a half. Yeah, 68 to 72 weeks.
15%. Let's contextualize that for a second. Because in the world of internet crash diets, people claim to lose 15% in a month.
Which is terrible for you.
Right. But clinically speaking, in a controlled trial, 15% is huge, isn't it?
It's massive. Before this, Standard weight loss drugs were delivering maybe 5 to 8% on average.
And usually with those terrible side effects we talked about?
Exactly. Hitting 15% was the threshold where we started seeing a real reversal of weight-related conditions.
Like sleep apnea.
Sleep apnea, hypertension, joint pain. It was a game changer. It was the very first time a drug got close to what bariatric surgery could do.
It was the game changer, until the game changed again.
Because science never sleeps.
Enter the challenger, Tirzepatide.
Yes.
Now, the source material describes this shift beautifully. They call it moving from a solo instrument to a duet.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right, because this is a dual agonist. So what is the second instrument playing here?
So tirzepatide keeps the GLP-1 part. It still hits that exact same receptor, but it adds a second target,
Which is?
GIP. That stands for glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide.
Okay, the source actually calls this a twin cretin. I have to admit, twin cretin sounds like a very specific type of sci-fi monster, or maybe a really bad indie band.
It's not the most elegant name, I will give you that.
No.
But the biology is incredibly elegant. The logic here is pure synergy. You aren't just adding two separate effects together. You are creating a compound effect.
Okay, explain that.
By co-stimulating GLP-1 and GIP, you seem to get a much stronger metabolic signal than either could ever produce alone.
But here is what confuses me, and I know this trips up a lot of people who read into the deep science of this stuff.
What's that?
I've read that GIP, in some contexts, actually promotes fat storage.
Yes.
So why on earth would we inject a fat storage hormone into someone trying to lose weight?
That is the million-dollar question.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, it actually stumped researchers for a while, too.
Really?
Yeah. It turns out that GIP is highly context-dependent. It's almost like it has a split personality depending on who it's hanging out with.
Okay.
When you activate it alongside GLP-1, it doesn't store fat. Instead, it seems to supercharge the insulin sensitivity.
Oh, interesting.
And it further suppresses the appetite signals in the brain.
So it's working harder, but the data suggests it might also be working smarter.
Exactly. It's like upgrading from a standard engine to a twin turbo.
Yeah.
You're hitting the metabolic system from two different angles simultaneously.
And the data bears this out. Like, we aren't just looking at 15% anymore.
No, we have totally broken that ceiling. In the pivotal trials for this one, they're called SURMOUNT, and Surpass Tirzepatide showed weight reductions ranging from 15% all the way up to about 20 to 22% at the higher doses.
Wow. 22% is literally a fifth of your body weight.
It's life-changing.
And I noticed the Blue Pine source mentions a head-to-head comparison between the two. That's pretty rare, isn't it?
It is.
Usually, pharma companies hate comparing their drugs directly against the competitor unless they are absolutely sure they're going to win.
It's a very bold move.
Mm-hmm.
But in a 72-week study directly comparing them, Tirzepatide achieved about 20% weight loss, while Semaglutide sat at about 14%.
Okay, so a clear winner there. 20% is getting up into serious, serious territory. But if you thought 20% was the limit of human biology...
Hold on to your hat.
Exactly, because now we have to talk about the triple threat.
Retatrutide.
Retatrutide. This is the one that really feels like we're entering totally uncharted territory. It's a triple agonist. So we have GLP-1,
Yep.
we have GIP,
Yes.
and now we are adding a third receptor, glucagon.
This is the real aha moment for the field. This is where things get really complex and just really fascinating.
But wait, let's pause for a second. We literally just said 10 minutes ago that semaglutide works partly by reducing glucagon.
We did.
And now you're telling me the most powerful new drug is stimulating glucagon. Isn't that working backwards?
I know.
That seems like hitting the gas and the brake at the exact same time.
It sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? And to understand why it works, we have to look at what glucagon actually does in the body.
Okay, break it down.
Usually, we think of glucagon as the enemy in diabetes because its main job is to tell the liver to release sugar into the blood,
Which raises blood sugar.
which is bad if you have diabetes.
Right, so why inject it?
Because the glucagon receptor does something else very special. It is a major driver of energy expenditure.
Meaning?
It essentially turns up the thermostat in the body. It promotes the burning of lipids, fats, and increases thermogenesis.
Oh, I see. So while GLP-1 and GIP are telling your brain to stop eating...
Glucagon is telling your body to burn more fuel.
That's brilliant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the missing piece of the puzzle. The previous drugs mostly worked on the energy inside of the equation by reducing appetite.
Making you eat less.
Right. Retatrutide hits energy in, but it also aggressively targets energy out. It actively increases your metabolic rate.
But what about the blood sugar issue? If glucagon raises sugar, isn't that dangerous for a diabetic patient?
And that is the absolute genius of the triple combination. The GLP-1 and GIP components are so good at lowering blood sugar and stimulating insulin.
That they balance it out?
They effectively cancel out the sugar-raising effects of the glucagon entirely.
That is wild.
It is. So you get the fat-burning benefit of glucagon without the dangerous blood sugar spike.
It's like they balance the chemical equation perfectly just to isolate the furnace effect.
And the clinical results reflect that power. The source material calls this the wow factor, and they really aren't exaggerating.
Let's hear the numbers.
In the phase 2 data and the interim phase 3 data, we are seeing average body weight loss of 24 to 28% at 48 to 68 weeks.
28%. I mean, let's just do the math on that for you listening. If you weigh 250 pounds, that is 70 pounds gone.
Gone.
That's an entire golden retriever.
It is functionally indistinguishable from bariatric surgery. For a long, long time, surgery was really the only way to get past that 25% mark.
And now we might be able to do it with a weekly injection.
Exactly.
That is a massive paradigm shift. But, and this is a massive, but that we absolutely have to stress, listeners cannot just go to their doctor today and ask for a retatrutide prescription.
Correct. We have to be very, very clear here. Retatrutide is still investigational. It is not FDA approved yet.
Right.
The numbers we are quoting are from clinical trials. We don't have the completed multi-year safety data for it that we have for something like Ozempic.
So while the efficacy is astounding, it's still early days.
Very early days. Comparisons are indirect right now, not head-to-head phase 3 trials yet.
Okay, so we have this ladder. Semaglutide at roughly 15%, Tirzepatide at 20%, Retatrutide knocking on the door of 30%.
Right.
But there is a question that inevitably comes up when you lose weight that fast. It's not just about the number on the scale, is it?
No, not at all.
Because I've seen people lose weight rapidly on different programs, and they don't look healthy. They look drawn.
And this is where the medical conversation really needs to mature. We need to stop talking just about weight loss as a blanket term and start talking about the quality of weight loss.
The Blue Pine source material brings up a term here that I want to unpack, skinny fat.
Yes.
I think people hear that and assume it's just an aesthetic thing, like looking a bit soft without your shirt on. But medically, it's a real issue, isn't it?
It is a massive physiological problem. The medical term would be something closer to sarcopenic obesity.
Sarcopenic obesity.
Basically, when you lose weight very rapidly, whether that's from starvation, a crash diet, or very potent drugs, your body doesn't just burn fat. It cannibalizes muscle.
Oh, why does it do that? You'd think the body would want to keep the muscle to stay strong and just burn the fat reserves. That's what the fat is for.
You would think so, but evolutionarily, muscle is expensive tissue. It
Expensive.
takes a lot of calories just to maintain muscle mass. If the body thinks it's starving, which is what these drugs essentially convince the brain is happening, it tries to become more efficient.
So it gets rid of the gas guzzler.
Exactly. It sheds the expensive tissue. It breaks down muscle for fuel to survive.
So if you lose 30 pounds, but 15 of those pounds were lean muscle mass, you might end up lighter on the scale.
But your metabolic rate has totally crashed because you lost your engine.
And you're physically weaker.
Precisely. That is not a health win. In the long term, that leads to frailty, especially in older adults.
So with retatrutide stripping weight off at 28%, I would be genuinely worried. Are these trial patients just withering away?
That was the major fear across the board. But Blue Pine Health highlights some really encouraging data from the DXA substudies.
And just for the listener, DXA is that advanced full body scan that tells you exactly what is bone, what is fat, and what is muscle.
Right, the gold standard for body composition. And what they found in the Retatrutide trials was actually fascinating.
Good news.
Mostly, yes. Participants did lose some muscle. That is inevitable when you get smaller.
Sure, you just don't need as much glute muscle to carry a 180-pound body as you do for a 250-pound body.
Simple physics. But the ratio was the key finding.
The fat to muscle ratio.
Right. They lost a significant amount of total fat mass, but the proportion of lean mass loss was comparable to, or even better than, what we typically see with diet and exercise alone.
Wow. So the drug, probably because of that glucagon exercise mimicking effect we talked about, is preserving the engine while it burns the fuel?
It appears so. The source notes that the vast majority of the weight reduction is attributable purely to fat.
That is huge.
It really implies that we are preserving metabolic health, not just making people smaller.
Because if you lose 28% of your weight and almost all of it is fat, you haven't just gotten smaller, you have completely transformed your body composition.
It changed your entire health trajectory.
And that's the ultimate goal, right? It's about health span, not just dress size.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have talked extensively about the benefits. We've talked about the incredible mechanisms. But we have to do the reality check now.
The trade-off.
Right. There is no such thing as a free biological lunch. What is the cost of admission here? Let's talk side effects.
There is always a trade-off.
Yeah.
Across all 3 generations, semaglutide, tirzepatide, and retatrutide, the side effect profile is remarkably consistent.
It's the gut.
It's the GI tract.
So we're talking nausea.
Nausea, diarrhea, constipation, vomiting. Basically, if you ramp up the dose too fast, your stomach rebels.
Because the drugs delay gastric emptying, remember?
Right. Sometimes that delay is just too effective. The food sits there and you feel sick.
But there was a surprising detail in the data regarding tirzepatide specifically.
Yes, this is really fascinating.
Yeah.
You would naturally assume that because tirzepatide is stronger, the twincretin, it would be harder on the stomach.
More power, more problems.
Exactly. But some reports suggest it might actually cause slightly less nausea for some patients compared to the older semaglutide.
Really? Why would that be?
It might be that GIP receptor again. It seems to modulate the nausea response slightly in the brain. It's not zero, plenty of people still get sick. But for some, it's actually a smoother ride.
And what about Retatrutide, with the furnace turned all the way up?
The source notes that because it has that higher metabolic impact, it could theoretically translate to more frequent issues.
Because you're revving the engine higher?
Right. You might see an increased heart rate, for example. But the early data actually says the GI side effects are broadly similar to the others.
Okay, so it doesn't seem to be off the charts worse.
Not based on what we've seen so far.
Which is promising. Now, we have to touch on delivery methods. Not everyone likes needles. I know people who would rather run a marathon than inject themselves.
Very common.
All 3 of the drugs we've discussed are weekly injections, right?
Currently, yes. They're all subcutaneous injections.
Is there anything coming in the pipeline for the person who just wants to pop a pill with their morning coffee?
There is. The pipeline is very vibrant right now. The source mentions a drug called orforglipron.
Wow, that is a mouthful. Orforglipron. Try saying that 3 times fast.
I will pass on that.
Fair enough. But what is it?
Orforglipron is interesting because it's a non-peptide oral GLP-1.
Okay, translate that for us. Why is non-peptide important?
Well, your stomach is basically a vat of acid designed to destroy peptides. That is literally what digestion is. It breaks down proteins.
So making a GLP-1 pill is hard because the stomach just eats it?
Exactly. The stomach acid destroys the drug before it can ever reach the bloodstream to work. But this new molecule is designed to survive the trip.
And does it work as well as the weekly shots?
Not quite. The results show about 8% to maybe 10% weight loss.
So compared to the 24 to 28% of Retatrutide, it's pretty modest.
Right. It's not in the same league for pure power.
But compared to nothing.
Yeah.
Or maybe for maintenance.
Exactly. That's the real vision here. Imagine a world where you use Retatrutide to lose the weight, and then you just transition to a daily pill like orforglipron to maintain it.
It gives clinicians a huge tool in the box.
It really does. It allows for personalized medicine.
So if we look at how a doctor, say a clinician, reading this exact Blue Pine health report is making decisions today, it's becoming a tiered system, isn't it?
It is. It's almost like a treatment algorithm now. You start with semaglutide. It's the proven approved foundation, good for diabetes, good for weight loss.
If that's not enough.
If the patient needs more robust results, maybe they have a higher BMI or more severe metabolic resistance, you step up to tirzepatide.
And Retatrutide eventually sits at the top as the future nuclear option.
Exactly. Retatrutide is what we are looking toward for those patients who previously would have had no other option but bariatric surgery.
It is just incredible to see how fast this hierarchy has been built. It feels like we went from having almost no tools for obesity and basically just eat less, move more, which we know fails for most people long term,
to having a fully stocked shed in the span of a decade.
It really is a revolution.
We moved from simply observing that these gut hormones exist to figuring out how to mimic them, to realizing we can combine them to create these superagonists.
Yeah.
It is arguably the biggest shift in chronic disease management since the invention of statins or blood pressure meds.
And I think that brings us back to the most important takeaway for you listening. If you are hearing this and thinking, sign me up for the triple agonist right now,
Which is a natural reaction.
what should be their mindset? Because it
Yeah.
is very easy to get swept up in the hype.
The mindset should be that power requires precision. These drugs offer hope we've never had before, but they are serious medical interventions.
They fundamentally reshape your biology.
Yes. We need to look at the long-term safety. And as we discussed, we really need to monitor body composition.
It's not just about melting away the pounds.
Right. And actually, that leads to a really provocative thought for the future.
What's that?
Think about the skinny fat issue we discussed earlier. As these drugs get more powerful, pushing 25–30% weight loss, the next great challenge in medicine might not be losing weight at all.
Because we've effectively solved the losing weight part.
We've cracked the code on fat loss.
We have.
So the challenge of the next decade will be figuring out how to keep the right weight. Are we entering an era where BMI becomes completely irrelevant?
Because a BMI of 22 means absolutely nothing if you have zero muscle mass.
Exactly. If you can be thin but metabolically unhealthy because you lost all your functional muscle on a triple agonist, have we really won?
The scale might lie, but the muscle doesn't.
That's it. The scale is no longer the arbiter of health.
That is really something to chew on. We might be fixing obesity only to create a frailty crisis if we aren't careful.
It's the next frontier we have to watch closely.
It's a brave new world, and we just have to make sure we're physically strong enough to live in it. Well, that does it for this deep dive into the metabolic revolution.
It's been a great discussion.
From single to triple agonists, the science is moving fast, and we will be right here to keep you up to speed. Catch you on the next one.